Welcome to Dark Truths, Religion Uncovered. Tonight, we're diving into a thought-provoking idea. Has following God stopped costing anything? We'll compare the intense devotion of ancient times with modern faith and uncover a shocking shift. The idea of religious obedience seems to have lost its teeth. Join us as we confront an uncomfortable truth that many modern religions quietly avoided. Obedience is often treated as an optional part of faith, not a core requirement. In ancient times, obedience was everything. It wasn't a suggestion or a metaphor. It was a life-altering action with real consequences. To obey God meant leaving home, giving up security, and risking your reputation, often for reasons you didn't fully understand. Think about Abraham. He obeyed God's call and walked away from everything he knew. Moses obeyed and stood up to an entire empire, risking his life to lead his people to freedom. The prophets obeyed, only to be rejected by the very people they were trying to save. For them, obedience wasn't about finding comfort. It was a path of sacrifice and personal cost. Now let's look at today. In many modern belief systems, obedience is often reshaped to fit our personal values and what feels right to us. We obey when it makes sense, when it feels good, or when it doesn't ask too much of us. Commands that challenge our comfort zone get reinterpreted, put off for later, or spiritualized until they lose their edge. So, obedience shifts from a call to action to a simple, internal agreement. A passive nod instead of an active pursuit. This is a major rewrite of ancient theology. The scriptures are filled with divine authority and never present obedience as a pick-and-choose activity. Jesus said, "If you love me, you'll keep my commandments." This wasn't about earning love. It's about showing love through surrender. And that's where modern beliefs often get stuck. Surrender feels threatening. It challenges our independence and our sense of being in control. So, the narrative changes. Obedience became guidance, and God becomes more of an advisor than an authority. Faith turns into a consultation rather than a deep submission. But ancient theology teaches that true obedience is where trust is forged. You don't obey because you have all the answers. You obey because you have deep-rooted trust, and real trust always involves risks. That's why so many biblical commands sound strange to our modern ears. Marching around a city, speaking to dry bones, forgiving our enemies, or loving the unlovable. These actions seem illogical unless we accept God's sovereignty. In a contemporary faith, we have a habit of editing out the hard parts. We celebrate commandments about justice but conveniently ignore those that demand sacrifice. We eagerly accept God's love, but downplay the call for discipline. But the scriptures don't allow us to split obedience into comfortable and uncomfortable piles. It's an all-or-nothing deal meant to reshape our priorities, our habits, our relationships, and our very identities. The modern trend is to seek inspiration instead of practicing obedience. Inspiration feels empowering and proactive, while obedience can feel like it diminishes us. But ancient wisdom shows that obedience doesn't erase who you are. It redirects you. It transforms you from the inside out. Without obedience, faith becomes abstract. We can say all the right things, but live lives that show no real change. We might worship passionately on Sunday, but make cautious, self-serving decisions the rest of the week. The ancients wouldn't even recognize this kind of faith. For them, a belief that doesn't change your behavior is just an illusion. The scripture tells us faith without works is dead. This isn't about earning salvation through actions. It's about our willingness to obey, revealing the reality of our faith. Modern beliefs often gets this backward, worried about becoming too legalistic. But ancient theology makes a clear distinction. Obedience is a response of trust, not a transaction based on fear. So here's a challenging truth for tonight. If your faith demands nothing from you, it hasn't pushed you to trust God beyond your own understanding. Obedience without sacrifice requires no real faith. A God who never asks you to obey becomes just a symbol, not a sovereign Lord. As we wrap up, we leave you with a question. The ancients would ask every modern believer, if your obedience never messes with your plans, your comfort, or your sense of control, who are you really obeying? Thank you for joining us on Dark Truths, Religion Uncovered. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think obedience has been sidelined in faith today, or does your faith still demand a real sacrifice? We'd love to hear from you.